Hey, all right. We're here, or I'm here with Carl Sullivan, who is the church leader for the Quad Cities Church. And if you're wondering where the Quad Cities are, they are below the hips but above the knees of Illinois and Iowa. No, just kidding. That's the quad muscle.
Yeah.
It's on the Mississippi River, right? On the border of Illinois and Iowa. Uh,
Yep.
Four cities there, and so this is a multi-state evangelist that we're dealing with today, and he's such a great brother and does such a good job leading his church. He's in our small church leaders group and definitely like one of the spiritual guys. Not to say the other guys aren't, but so this that's what we get here. And so of course when given the opportunity to pick the sermon topics, Carl chose treasuring the cross, and so that's what we're going to talk about today in our treasuring God series. This is actually the final video. We actually did, this will be 9 videos that hopefully you guys are using to jump off from the notes that are in the folder, so that you can have an awesome summer of preaching and help your churches to treasure God, even though I think a lot we're kind of all over the place. Just coming back from the conference, even the church leaders this year were all over the place. So hopefully this series, and if you're doing the booklet and everything, and the Facebook page with the Pray Somewhere Awesome Day pictures, hopefully it's been helpful for you guys. So, Carl, thank you for hanging with us. Yeah, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit and talk about what do you how do you preach? How do you see preaching? What can we expect from you today?
Yeah. My name's Carl Sullivan. Been in the Quad Cities for about 7 years. Wife and I lead the church here. Um, it's good. A lot of the things that I think about, when I'm preaching and even just doing ministry, like I go back to what I grew up seeing in the church. I grew up as a kingdom kid,
Yeah.
and just I loved coming to church. I mean, it was like exciting to me. I had my best friends, I had all this, and hearing the messages, just I felt just encouraged and loved, inspired. And I feel like that's what I want to pass on. I went to college almost with this view of everyone who went to church had this exciting time at church and they loved it. And then realizing as I was sharing my faith on campus, like nobody had that same feeling. I was like, this is weird.
Right.
So I went into college not even really thinking about doing ministry, but halfway through college, halfway through my degree, I was like, okay, I've got some internships, and I was like, I want to provide that for the generations to come. I want to provide that for my kids. I want that exciting, fun, just inspiring time. And so that's what I try to produce. I in my preaching, I'm a lot like conversational. I like to just kind of have it flow. I'm not as much the structure or the point and have all these sub points and have it like spell out a word and all that stuff. I've heard a lot of that and I appreciate that, but that's just not my style.
Right.
um but for me, like, I think I ask a lot of questions. Like, that's just my personality. I'm a questioner. And so anything that I receive, anything that I hear, I tend to just question, just say, okay, well, let's
Yeah.
think about this more. And so the same thing happens when I read the Bible. I just want to ask a lot of questions. I want to know what's going on. And so I try to do that in my sermons. Not, I mean, sometimes I ask a lot of questions to the church, but I ask a lot of questions for myself while I'm preparing it,
Yeah.
trying to get different perspectives, because sometimes we just tend to, oh, we've read this verse this way and we only go one direction with it.
Right.
I go, well, is there anything, how else could this be interpreted? How else could people take this? Because there's a lot of people who read the Bible and don't have the same faith and the same encouragement that I get out of it. And I kind of wonder why. What are they seeing?
Right.
Or what are they hearing? So, that's kind of a little bit my style. It's
Yeah.
all over the place, but I try to be encouraging, try to, just relate to the audience. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's something that's been really cool about our small church group is everybody's pretty different, and I'm more of like the structure guy. I'm not spelling stuff out with my points either, but I'm a little more structured. And I think, we've been in discipling groups together, Carl, and we kind of, we definitely don't like butt heads or anything, but we come at things from different angles, and I really value that. And I think I've learned a lot from you and your perspective. So I think that's particularly important with this sermon, because if there's anything that we think we know and probably aren't curious enough and asking enough questions about, it would be the cross.
Right.
Take communion every Sunday for our whole lives, and focus on the cross. And so I think that sometimes that familiarity with something leads us to think that we treasure it, but we don't actually treasure it. And
Right.
so I'm excited to get into this message. So yeah, if you want to take us through how you'll do your introduction, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Joel. I mean, I just want to say thanks for all of this. This has been such a great series, such a great time to do this, and appreciate all your work in this. But yeah, I mean, getting into my introduction, I mean, it kind of, there's a lot of, we've gone through, 8 or 9 sermons, so a lot of the recap of what we've done, kind of that basic welcome recap. And for you and whatever you're going to do, you can recap in a different way. But the introduction for treasuring the cross, I just kind of think about, well, of course, we know that the cross is a treasure, but how do you treasure that? Sorry.
So
You just say, okay, well, how do you treasure it, and what does that mean? What does that look like? And sometimes we kind of just take the basic view of understanding the cross now in the power and the resurrection, and we put it all together and we go, this is awesome, this is powerful. And we wear necklaces and t-shirts, and we just think, of course we treasure the cross, this is amazing, this is the victory, this is why we're here as Christians. And I think that's kind of the first level that you look at in treasuring the cross. I even have an example of my nephew who is an inspiring tattoo artist, and he gave all of his family little cross tattoos on their wrist, and that's their family tattoo, because they're like, hey, we're Christians, we like, it literally marks us as Christians, and we
yeah,
display it, we're like, this is awesome, and we treasure in that way, and we should. But then you kind of go, okay, well, what does the cross really mean?
right.
Take it a little bit deeper, and you think about everything we read about the cross in the New Testament. Like, they didn't really understand the cross the way we understand the cross.
Right.
They're like, for Jesus' time, I mean, you hear the cross, you're scared. This is punishment. This is suffering. This is death.
Yeah.
The cross meant like you did something wrong. The cross meant you're a sinner. The cross meant you're a bad person.
Right.
That's what the cross meant. And you would not run to the cross. You would not display the cross. You would not be excited about the cross. You wouldn't treasure the cross, because
Right.
that's death. Why would you treasure that?
Yep.
And I think there's still a part of us that kind of questions that and says, yeah, I like the cross because of Jesus and the victory and the great symbol that we have now. But when we really look at the cross was suffering.
Mm-hmm.
The cross is hard. The cross was time where Jesus was crying and anguish, and all of his disciples left him because of the cross.
Right.
Nobody's treasuring the cross.
Yeah.
And we at times now, we there's the cross that we have in our life, and we don't treasure that. We go, no, let's just skip over the bad parts and get to the victory. Yay, we're in Christ.
Yeah.
We have victory over sin. But we're in the midst of suffering, and we go, this is terrible. How do we get out of this? And that's not what Jesus did. We don't see his example of doing that.
Right.
That's kind of the introduction, kind of painting that picture of
Love it.
treasuring the cross.
Yeah, that's awesome, bro. I'm already convicted. I'm ready. And yeah, I do think it's, even compared to the other treasuring God sermons, this is really calling people to treasure something terrible. And that's just not how we think about treasure. Like,
Yeah.
why would you treasure this terrible thing? And so I think right off the bat, it's shocking. It's putting people in the right place. So yeah, and then how do you move on from there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of go into, I mean, this is the flow of, okay, let's see what Jesus was actually teaching about how we should view the cross, how we should treasure the cross, and go right into Matthew 16. I mean, there's a few times where Jesus predicts his death, and this is one of them. And it says, from that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem, suffer many things at the hands of the elders and the chief priests and the teachers of the law, that he must be killed, and on the third day be raised to life. And Jesus is showing, okay, what is the cross? Let me show you the power of the cross and what I'm going to do. He's trying to show us. He's saying, okay, the cross, it is, I mean, it's so interesting. And you see the reaction of Peter that he skips over the power of the cross and the the treasure of the cross. And he just looks at the suffering and death and no, never, Lord, like, why would you do that? That's terrible. That's bad. That's not a treasure. He says, he says right there, I'm going to be raised to life. He said the cross is the beginning of a new life,
Yeah.
a new creation. You have to lay down yourself, lay down your life, deny yourself, die to yourself, go to that cross in order to have a new life. Jesus is saying that's where the power is. That's the victory. It starts with the suffering and the death. And we don't treasure that, We don't like to treasure that. We just give me the life, give me the new life, give me the new creation. And it says that the disciples, in Matthew 17, he predicts his death again, and they were filled with grief. And when he's saying, this is what's going to I must die, I must go through this. And he has many teachings about his death, in John 12, he talks about, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds.
Yeah.
He's giving them a new way to look at what the cross is going to produce in Jesus' life and in their life. And he's talking about himself dying on the cross. So I think it goes to that. So if you want to treasure the cross, like we all say we do as Christians, you have to treasure that whole process.
Yeah. That's great.
Not just the results. The results are there, and we should treasure those as well. But sometimes the results aren't there. We don't see the victory, and then we just feel terrible, and we're in a bad place because there's only suffering, and we don't understand what it is supposed to produce in us.
Yeah.
It's the whole process.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think about just, it's not just that Jesus died on the cross and treasuring that, but treasuring that we're carrying our cross and that we're going to experience suffering, but we get a whole new perspective. So new that you could even venture to treasure it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not always there. So
right. Yeah.
Good.
I mean, this is what Jesus was calling us to do, to get there. He was teaching time and time again before he even went through the process.
Yeah. That's right.
And we see that the disciples finally, eventually get it, because they saw what it will produce.
Yeah.
But they were having a hard time at this time. And we have a hard time when we're in the middle of suffering.
Right.
Going on to Matthew 27, I mean, he's arrested. All of his disciples left him. They're running around, getting out of there as quick as possible because they're like, this is bad. This is death. I don't want to be, a part of this.
Right.
Jesus is carrying his cross. He's suffering. He's falling down. They have to force someone to carry his cross. Like, nobody wants a part of this.
Right.
And he's there, Matthew 27, he's on the cross and everyone's just ridiculing him, heaping insults on him. And they say, oh yeah, you're supposed to be this great person. Look at you on the cross. You failed, This is defeat. This is the worst thing that could ever happen to you. They had no idea what the cross was or what the cross could do.
Yeah.
It talked about them, they're mocking them. It was like all the people were mocking them. The chief priests, the teachers of law, the elders, all the people. Even it says even the rebels who were crucified with him heaped insults on him, which is like, you're in the same boat, you're on the cross, and you're like,
Yeah.
insulting me for being on the cross, like. And that's the same thing for us. Like, we don't understand. The whole world doesn't understand what the cross is supposed to be and what's supposed to do. And Jesus is saying that this is a new way. This is a different way, and I'll show you the better way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like seeing even more examples of not understanding what the cross is supposed to be and not understanding the full treasure of it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you go into Matthew 26 and just the experience that Jesus has while
Yeah.
on the cross.
Right. I mean, he felt it all. He felt all the pain, all the emotional, physical wounds. He felt it. I mean, he was overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death, on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? I mean, he felt the fullness of it. Sometimes I don't know if we understand truly what Jesus went through, because sometimes we go, I'm suffering and I'm going through all this stuff, and it's just not good.
Right.
It's not. Why would I suffer? Why would I go through this? Why, Lord? Like, this is just. And Jesus felt those same things.
Right.
And he understands the hardship, the suffering of the cross and of dying to yourself. He understands that. But it still says, for the joy set before him,
Yep.
he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and suffered and died. He still understood the full process of it. So I think for us, like Jesus feeling that pain, we feel the pain and suffering of the things that we go through, but understanding, okay, there's something greater at the end of this. I must go through this.
Yeah.
God has me going through this for some reason. I'm gonna go through it with that same faith that Jesus had. He did it. And we see the end and we're like, yay, we're so excited at the end.
Right.
The excitement at the end is even more exciting and glorious once we know the pain and struggle and sorrow of going through it. I think that's the same thing. Like, and we understand this in a lot of things that we do. There's a point in our at one hand, we just don't go through, like, I don't want to go through suffering. I just want to be comfortable. I want to avoid it. But then there's another point where we understand, yeah, I'm going to go through some suffering because it's going to produce something. We understand this by working out, by going, I remember going through school and go, what's the point of this? And I was just like, suffering. I'm like, there will be, a piece of paper at the end. That's the glorious piece of paper that I've been waiting for,
Yeah.
like, we understand that. And you put yourself through it because you understand what it produces.
Yep.
So we understand this concept, but a lot of times we just want to run from it. I just have, there's just different sayings, no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
No effort, no result, no guts, no glory. I just think about no cross, no crown.
Yeah.
About obviously for Jesus, but for us as Christians. And going through pain and suffering is not just bad. A lot of different examples. Again, my son, who's just going in to be a freshman in high school, is now like this tall, but he like grew a foot in like 2 months. It seems like, maybe not that much, but like he's going through growing pains. He's like, oh, my legs and my knees, and you go, yeah, that hurts, but this is good. You're growing. It's healthy.
Yep.
There's some healthiness of going through pain and suffering to be healthy. Like, you're going to have to go through that to be healthy. And we just, understand that through different things that we've gone through.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff like of suffering. We don't kind of like that part, but without that, there's no victory.
Yeah.
We just want to skip over the bad parts and only take the good, but that's not possible. Without that suffering of the cross, there is no forgiveness of sins. Without that suffering, there's no salvation. There is no resurrection.
Right.
There's no new life. If you
Yeah.
don't die to yourself, you don't go through that suffering, you won't have a new life.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I think it's so cool because it totally just fits. It's not like God wrote a whole new story. It's the story of the whole world. Like that's how
Right.
plants work. That's how people work. Like everything good comes out of something difficult and out of a struggle. And so it's really what we assign that struggle. And obviously, when we're literally in pain, things like that, or emotionally, physically, it's going to be tough. But I think we make it worse because we're so averse to struggling, or we feel like we're entitled to comfort, and it shouldn't be like this. Instead of just embracing the suck, which probably can't say that from the pulpit, but the concept. So
maybe not me, but you can.
Nah, I wouldn't say it either. There's some people who would say it, but yeah, that's it's a lot of, so much of it we make it worse because we're so averse to any kind of suffering. So these air conditioned lives, I love me some air conditioning though, so I'm not going to complain about that, but gotta be careful. So that's awesome. All right, I'm getting even more convicted. Where are we going next, Carl?
Yeah, just seeing that. I mean, trying to, again, we're trying to understand the full picture of going for, we think it's just this one, just the victory of it, and go, oh, well, it's including the suffering. You go, well, how is that good? And we're starting to see, okay, I can understand suffering produces character in my life. The suffering of the cross produced the forgiveness of sins. So I'm starting to see that. Now we got to go back to ourselves and say, okay, now how do I get to that response where I see suffering and I see hardship and I don't automatically go, this is bad.
Right. Yes.
That same response.
Let's go there.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the hope and the goal of treasuring the cross is the whole picture.
Right.
And not always just going straight to the negative, just like Peter did, never, Lord, that was his first thought. Never, Lord, like this is our first response. Nope, I'm not going through that suffering. You're not going to go through that. This is only going to be good. We only have good days ahead of us. And you're saying this is going to be bad and terrible and you're going to die. And so how do we get to that place, and I think some of it is we just look back at our life, back at what God has done.
Yeah.
Disciples, when Jesus says, I'm going to be raised to life, they were like, nope, you're not gonna die. It's like,
that's
what
not
are you
a thing.
like? Yeah. But they knew it was a thing. They were there when Jesus raised many people to life. John 11 with Lazarus, Luke 7 with the widow's son, Luke 8, Jairus' daughter. They saw the amazing, and some of the things they just see these miracles and they're like, wow, this is amazing. Look what God's doing. But they don't always understand the suffering because they weren't always there during the suffering of it.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus understood. He was weeping, he was crying and understood the hardship and the pain, and then he raised him to life, But the disciples, they kind of just show up, be like, wow, this is amazing. And they saw the miracle, but they weren't there during that suffering.
Right.
They didn't, maybe they just didn't see it or didn't want to see it. And maybe that was a part of why they all deserted Jesus. Hey, I'm not going to be here during the suffering. Like,
right.
This is too much. I'm out. Like whatever it is, the things that we go through in life, like, oh, this, this situation is less than ideal. I'm out,
Right.
Well, I don't want to have to go to that. We've had church retreats and people like, oh, it's in a tent. Nope, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I understand you don't like being in a tent. That's fine, and that's not a great example of like a deep spiritual thing, but it's kind of this idea of like anything that's like there's no AC, I'm out, like you're talking about.
Right. I thought you were supposed to be intense. That's the whole thing, right? So
Yep.
they're not intense. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
And I think sometimes in our suffering, even just like the hint of suffering, like we just want to run from it. We just want to run away, like, and even sometimes when we're suffering, we tend to not be close to Jesus during that time.
Right.
It's just like it's too hard. That's I don't know why. That's the time we need Jesus the most, the time where he's there and we know that, but
Right.
we tend to just go, no, I just have to suffer by myself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's like, this is not the way of the cross.
Yeah, I feel like that's almost like an animalistic instinct. Like when animals are hurt, they separate themselves.
Right.
And so we need to not be creatures, but people of God who seek after God more. And the tough thing I think that I've found, even over the past few years with suffering, is when you run, sometimes you run up a hill and you think you can see the top of the hill, but it's actually a false peak, and you're like, oh, there's more hill. No, like I was ready, like I could do that suffering, but
Right.
because I thought that I knew where the end was, but now I've reached another level of, and then there could be 3 or 4 of those in a row, and each time
Right.
it's like it's so tough when you just don't know. And because we like to think that it's like a fairy tale, like suffering, even you suffer for a little bit, but there's gonna be a happy ending. That's the promise. It's
Right.
all gonna work out. But sometimes it's like, well, no, yes, it'll work out, but not yet, and not yet, and not yet. And at the end of this suffering, there will be even worse suffering. That happens sometimes, and it's so hard, man. But I think that
Yeah.
the gospel and what you're teaching here, it gives us perspective, and that's so important.
Yeah. And then you kind of like get to the place like going to Acts 5. They got to a place they learned to treasure the cross with the suffering.
Yeah.
They learned, I mean, they obviously saw the victory of the cross, and that really kind of, I think, changed their perspective. Like, okay, it's not just only bad all the time. There is something that God is promising, and so you hang on to that faith. So that means now any suffering I go through today, I can get through it with faith, knowing that God has promised something greater in the future, if eternal life. And that's what they did in Acts 5.
Yeah.
They were preaching about, preaching the gospel. They were arrested. They're like, what are you doing? Hey, don't you know, like, Jesus, we just killed him. Do we have to kill you too? Like, stop. We've got to stop this. That's what they're trying to do. Stop it. And they're like, no, we're going to preach. We don't care what you say. They're arrested. They were questioned. They're in jail. They were flogged. And it says when they were released in Acts 5:41, it says the apostles left rejoicing because they have been counted worthy of suffering disgrace for the name.
Yeah.
Like, they were rejoicing because of the suffering.
Right.
Because now they understand this suffering is not only bad. I don't have to run away from this. And when I do run away from suffering, I don't get the victory. That's the same thing. When you only seek comfort,
Right.
that's actually going to end up killing you. You're going to end up getting sick and not be healthy. But if you embrace the suffering, this is producing character, and you can rejoice in that. And ultimately, spiritually, you rejoice in the suffering you go through as Christian, because man, I've been counted worthy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a Christian. I get to be with Christ. I get to suffer like he did. This is what he calls for us to do. This is hard, but I can switch that mindset and go, okay, now I can rejoice because Christ suffered like I suffered.
Yeah. That's great.
Participating in the suffering of Christ. That's First Peter, and it's not, it's the sufferings of Christ. It's not common sufferings of sin. Maybe we need to make a distinction there.
Right.
You might suffer your own consequences of your sin. That's not sufferings with Christ.
Yeah.
Christ didn't sin. He faced, the consequences of other people's sin, but it was not the suffering that we go through. Is being a Christian, is denying yourself, is taking up your cross, is not going the way of the world, not going the way of our sinful nature. And there's suffering there, and there's hardship,
Yeah.
and you might get ridiculed. You might lose friendships. It might, be hard to deny yourself and to carry your cross and to not be selfish and not be prideful and not hurt somebody who's hurt you, not giving in to your sinful thoughts and feelings. Sometimes there's suffering there, and there's discipline there, and there's hardship, but it's worth it. And you can rejoice in that because you're suffering with Christ. Right. You can think about other examples, the times that, that you are suffering for being a Christian, the times where you said no to sin, the times where you said yes to, following God, and maybe that took you to an uncomfortable place. And, so there's a lot of different examples, you can maybe put in some personal examples there.
Yeah.
That times, but.
Yeah, I think about, especially with the Acts 5 example, and the last sermon in the series is treasuring eternity. And I think we think about like, well, I should think about heaven more, which is true, but really believing in heaven and hell and treasuring eternity for other people. And it makes me just wonder, what is how much suffering are we willing to endure to share our faith? They counted it joy to suffer, to share their faith. And I know, and I have the title of an evangelist, but my threshold for suffering is not high enough, for sure. Like it's like slight embarrassment will be enough, or, not being in the mood sometimes to share my faith, not feeling super social. Like that's terrible. And it's definitely not treasuring the cross, where Jesus, his threshold was the cross. So I think that could be a good shot for people who are preaching this, and then also even just leading into the next Sunday's message with that. So it's great. And then where you head next, Carl?
Well, just kind of closing it out, I mean, again, trying to get that switch in our mindset from, the times that we want to just, not deny ourselves. We want to, just react in a sinful way and to kind of avoid hardships, and say, those times that say, okay, well, what do we need to do to kind of to switch that? And kind of, in closing, and go to Psalm 22. This is the my God, why have you forsaken me?
Yeah.
Psalm of David, feeling the same thing. I mean, we feel this. Jesus felt it, obviously. David's feeling it. We feel this, and we feel like, God, where are you?
Right.
In this suffering. I don't get it. I don't understand. This is too hard. And this is, I think, part of the first step is you got to go to God and say this.
Right.
A lot of times we don't even get to this step.
Right.
It's okay. Jesus said this to God. Why have you forsaken me? And we would not dare sometimes to even say that. But that's okay. You get to that point. Say, God, where are you? I need help. I'm suffering. And it says, why are you far from saving me? So far from my cries of anguish. My God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer. By night, but I find no rest. And this is just we're gonna, oh, how dare you pray in this way? I think this is real. When we're going through suffering, this is real. You feel this. Yeah. So pray to God and say, God, I'm feeling this. But quickly he had his mind switched, not to just focus on suffering, not to run from it. He goes right to God, understanding who God is, and said, but yet you are enthroned as the Holy One.
Yeah.
You are the one Israel praises. Talk about our ancestors put their trust in you. They trust, and you've delivered, like he understood who God was. So he's
Yeah.
fighting and getting to this place. Going on in verse 19, it says, "But you, Lord, do not be far from me. You are my strength. Come quickly to help me. Deliver me from the sword, my precious life from the power of the dogs." I mean, this is the prayer that we need to go through suffering. The Psalms, the whole Psalm. This is just a few of the passages from there, but is okay, God, I'm feeling it. It's hard. Help me through it. I understand who you are. I understand what you could do. I've seen the victory that you have brought in my life. I've seen the victory, obviously, of the cross. And I treasure those things. God, help me through this now because I'm not seeing it. I have trouble. You know, I know you are there to help me. Do not be far from me. You're my strength.
Yeah.
This just helps us that, Jesus through the cross will save us, has saved us, even if we feel forsaken. You treasure the cross, you treasure all of it, the hardships of being a Christian, and that you can even treasure those times where you say no to that sinful reaction, the time that you said yes to the good things that you ought to do.
Yeah.
No, that was hard. You treasure that because of what it's producing. It's those little things, those everyday things. I'm going through and I'm like, I woke up with a headache and it makes everything worse. And it's just a little headache, not a big deal, but sometimes it just like, just a little bit of suffering just kind of throws us off for the whole day.
Right.
Okay. In those moments, okay, God, I have this headache. Help me through this. Help me, still understand what you've done. I mean, it's just all the big things, the little things, the everyday things, the denying of ourselves, dying to ourselves, and even bigger sufferings that produce, feeling mistreated, being insulted because of our faith,
Yeah.
or that, maybe you can't relate or fit in. Sometimes it's like, well, I want to relate and fit in and just be, do what everyone else does. How come I can't do that? And we can still treasure that because we know the glory that it's producing in our life. We praise God that we can bear his name and we can continue to do good. I mean, just kind of wrapping it up in that of reinforcing the treasure of the whole process of the cross, and reframing the bad things that this can be a treasure as well.
Yeah.
I'm just so, I like to finish with, a few questions or whatever, and just say, okay, so how do you treasure the cross? Go back to how do you treasure it? What do you do? How do you see it?
Yeah.
See that complete picture of the treasure being the suffering and the victory.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, now what's something that you're going through now that maybe you can start seeing in a different way through the eyes of the cross, the full, complete picture of the cross, the suffering you're going through now. How can you treasure that? And so,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I, you know, finish. Just kind of asking some of those questions, and I'll probably say, hey, let's all truly treasure the cross, or whatever.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah. I think it makes me think about like, this, maybe this is a dark place, but talking about the cross, but like when you die, you want to be known as somebody who treasured the cross, like that people are going to look at your life and they're going to probably think you're really defined by how you handle the tough things that you go through. And as you get older, the tough things seem to multiply. And so really having your treasure be the cross, be this perspective on suffering, is the key to a remarkable life. And so that's awesome. And we're doing sermonians this summer. So this is a perfect message for us. And I'm looking forward to preaching it. So any other closing thoughts, Carl, from the quad? Carl from the quad? Like Jenny from the block, but not.
No, I mean, not really. I just think it's kind of, you know, I I just really like this idea of seeing the cross in a different way, and so this now is not just the good parts of my life. This is now every part of my life.
Yeah.
The cross is there in every part of my life,
Yeah.
and so I think that's what it should be. Our life should be everything through the lens of the cross. And so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's coming to Jesus is it changes our whole perspective. We see things through the gospel, and so the cross is the pivotal point for all of humanity. And so I love that this message takes that big idea and super personalizes it in a convicting way. So, and I think it leads into the last sermon on eternity really well. So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
awesome, brother. Well, thank you so much. Super appreciate you writing this sermon, and I know that a lot of people are going to use it as a springboard to inspire their congregation. So, thank you.
Great.